Have you ever had one of those months where you've been doing everything right? You've been posting and DMing and networking and speaking and all of those things, yet your numbers don't seem to move. Or maybe they move a little bit, but then they come right back down. And what really messes with your head is when you start to question, do people want to work with me? Is it that I'm not good at sales? Well, if you are a talented coach or consultant, chances are it doesn't have anything to do with you being lazy or not trying hard enough. It is almost always because of one or two bottlenecks that are quietly choking your business. And today, I'm going to help you diagnose what those bottlenecks may be for you. In fact, at the end of this video, you'll understand the 5 most common bottlenecks that we see with women coaches and consultants that causes them to plateau. You'll be able to identify which ones are getting in the way for you, and you'll have a clear action plan to address them. Let me share with you a quick client moment that we see all the time. A woman comes to us and she is brilliant and experienced and smart and really good at what she does, but she is exhausted because she is marketing all the time and she's not seeing any results from it. And when we take a look under the hood, it's usually not 5 bottlenecks. It's usually 1 or 2. Maybe she's trying to serve too broad of an audience. Maybe her messaging is just not hitting. Maybe her offer's not transformative enough, or maybe she's getting leads, but she can't convert those leads in a sales conversation, or maybe she's getting leads and they are the wrong leads. But when we address that bottleneck, everything changes. It becomes lighter and cleaner and more precise and frankly, more feminine. And rather than trying to force something, she understands that she can really step into the role of leadership. That's what we teach inside the Precision Sales Accelerator using our feminine blueprint formula and our sales methodology that we call the softer side of sales. No bro marketing, no pushy sales techniques, but rather a methodical approach to growing your business. And by the way, if you're sitting there thinking, gee, I could really use somebody to help me think through this bottleneck that I might have, schedule a call with me and we'll take a good look at your business, where you currently are, what your aspirations are, and what those bottlenecks might be. Bottleneck number 1, your niche is too broad. Now, a lot of you may not want to hear that because niching feels very counterintuitive. It can feel like you're cutting yourself off from opportunity when in fact what you're doing is allowing for accelerated growth, because when you are not niched down enough, your messaging feels very generic, and whatever you post, you may get some likes on, and yeah, that's interesting, but will it really convert? Will clients say, I see me in that situation? And that is what niching does. So let's pause on that a moment. A sales plateau typically is not a sales problem, or at least it doesn't start that way. It's typically an identity or a clarity problem. Your ideal client is out there searching for help, right? But they're not necessarily searching for a coach or consultant. They're looking for someone who really understands their challenge, that really understands that this is the exact time that they need to make a change. They are looking for someone who understands the transformation that they're looking for. And that's why in our program, what we do is we create a clear transformation statement. So here's the fix. Instead of saying, I help women with their confidence, or I help women with their mindset issues, or I help nonprofits with change management, you want to get a lot more specific. For example, in my world, I help ambitious women, coaches, and consultants who have hit a revenue plateau go from feeling frustrated and overwhelmed to having a real clear path to steady clients so that they have balance in their life and they can enjoy financial freedom. So notice in my transformation statement that it's actually got a pulse. It's got a start and an end. It has got one specific ideal client with one specific problem on one specific journey that is looking for one specific transformation. Let me give you a little diagnostic tool here. If somebody were to land on your website or your LinkedIn page, would they know within 5 seconds who it is that you serve? Or would they have to work for it? Because people don't buy when they're confused. They buy when they feel seen. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you're saying, okay, I get it, but I'm just not sure how to niche or what my niche should be, schedule a call and we can talk through it. Because once you have that niche, that's where you get real clarity. No spiraling, no confusion, just real clarity. Bottleneck number 2, your offer is not being positioned as a transformation. And this one is subtle, but it can be a real game changer. So what I'm talking about here is I see a lot of coaches and consultants sell ingredients. So it's things like the number of coaching sessions, the number of one-on-ones, the number of group sessions, the digital platform, whatever your offer consists of. And the reality is that people don't buy ingredients, they want to buy the cake. In this case, they want to buy the transformation. So if you find yourself at a revenue plateau, it may be because it's feeling like it's not transformative enough. It is not a big, bold offer. It feels like support rather than transformation. I want you to rewrite your offer using the following framework. Instead of in 8 weeks, you'll have 8 coaching sessions, blah, blah, blah. I'd like you to instead think about this. In 8 weeks, you will go from X to Y using Z. So the X there is their current state, the Y is their transformative state, and the Z is your unique methodology or unique mechanism. So for me, with talking to somebody who has a real disdain for selling, I may say something to her like, in 8 weeks, you'll go from feeling really scared about selling and uncomfortable in sales conversations to a real sense of confidence and consistent sales success, using our methodology called the softer side of sales, which is a feminine approach to selling. So now they can see it, now they can feel it. But there's another layer here that's important as well. And that is a story comes to mind with a client that I worked with a couple of years ago, and she was a copywriter, and she was concerned because she wasn't getting repeat business. And I asked her why she thought that was, and she said, well, the offer's just not long enough for them to really see the impact. And I said, well, why not? And she said, well, I'm afraid to price it, that the price would be out of reach for them. To make a long story short, she recreated the offer so it was a year. She repriced the offer and her business totally changed as a result. And so keep in mind that your offer needs to be greater than support, because again, support is nice, but transformation is what sells. Bottleneck number 3, your pricing is undercutting your authority and your client's commitment. So this may sting a little bit, but let me tell you that clients are not going to pay for your value. They will pay for what they think your value is, and you control their thinking. So when we underprice ourselves, and by the way, women underprice themselves by 28% compared to their male counterparts offering the exact same service. When we underprice ourselves, what tends to happen is we're attracting the wrong people. We get ghosted. We get a lot of maybes. And when we do get a yes, they don't do well, and we are overworked, and we end up feeling resentful, and we hit a revenue plateau. So what's the fix? I want you to think about pricing a little bit differently than you probably have been thinking about it. If you're like most coaches and consultants, you come up with an hourly rate and you multiply it by the number of hours you think it's going to take you, and voila, you have your price. But in addition to that, I want you to think about a few other things. The first and most obvious one is value. I want you to think about value from a quantitative perspective, which usually has to do with ROI, as well as a qualitative perspective. So qualitative are things like, I'll have a lot more clarity, or I'll sleep better at night, or I'll be more confident, things like that. The next lens that I want you to look at is, what is the alternative to working with you or someone like you? Is there an alternative? Think through that. What is the cost of your client not addressing the problem or issue that they have? And finally, what do you think the competition would charge, and what value can you provide above and beyond that? And that, frankly, is where the beauty of niching comes from, because when you've niched down, you usually are able to provide higher levels of value than a competitor who is not as specific about their ideal client and the transformation that they promise to their client. When you do this, when you have a good sense of the holistic value that you're providing to your client, and you're able to position your offer in that context, pricing becomes so much clearer and you're so much more confident in offering your price. Bottleneck number 4. Your messaging is not specific enough for your ideal client to feel understood. And so this is an area where a lot of women coaches and consultants get off track with their messaging. They're saying the right things, but they're not saying it in the words their clients would use. And messaging is not so much about what you say, it's what your ideal client hears. And great messaging is not you demonstrating that you understand the client, but rather that the client feels understood by you. So if you're at a revenue plateau and you've got, great content and you're posting all the time, and you may be getting some likes, but you're not getting a response of, oh my gosh, that is really me. It may be because of your messaging. If your clients are saying that's interesting instead of that's me, interesting doesn't convert. So here's the fix. You need to base your messaging on real voice of the customer data. So before we developed our program, the Precision Sales Accelerator, we interviewed over 100 women entrepreneurs, and we tracked the exact language that each person used, and then we analyzed it to see commonality. So an example there is, I don't know how many times I heard women describe themselves as a hamster on a treadmill. We also heard a lot about wanting to have an impact. The word impact was used quite frequently. They talked about clarity and confidence. And if you were to go to our website or look at our sales sheet, all of those words are sprinkled throughout. Because what we know is that when we use the voice of the customer, our messaging is much more compelling. In our program, we have our clients do the exact same thing. We have them conduct market research interviews with current and past clients, as well as potential ideal clients. And among other things, they are tracking the exact phrases and language that they use. So what I would suggest is have a few interviews, both with past clients, current clients, and hopefully ideal clients who might be in your pipeline, but you haven't had a chance to work with. AI is great for this. In fact, if you are using a tool like Fathom, you can just upload your transcripts and AI will help you to determine what those key words and phrases are. Because when we use our customers' language, our messaging is so much more compelling. They really see themselves in it. The 5th bottleneck has to do with sales conversion, and it's the one that people think is the first problem, right? Which is not necessarily the case, but it is in many cases. And there are 2 components to being able to convert sales. One is you have to have the right mindset, and second, you have to have the right skill set. So let's talk about mindset. We found in our research that many women have a real disdain for selling, feeling that they need to be pushy or salesy in order to be effective. And that is just not the case. In fact, when we lean into our feminine energy of collaboration and empathy and really think about ourselves being in service of our ideal client, we are much more successful, we are much more comfortable, as well as the client is more comfortable. So that's the mindset piece of it. And in fact, I'll tell you the story about Sue, who was in our program. And Sue she hated sales, talked about how much she hated sales all the time. So we helped Sue kind of transition this mindset. And Sue showed up at one of our group coaching sessions with a pillow that she had made that says sales is helping. If you were to ask Sue now how she feels about selling, she loves selling, and it has shown dramatically in her numbers. I mean, it's really quite amazing. So clearly that was her bottleneck. But it's not only the mindset, there's also the skill set associated with it. And it's things like setting the right climate, asking the right questions and going deep, having follow-on questions, listening with the intent to really, really learn, and then being able to take everything that you've learned in presenting your offer in the context of their needs and their desired transformation. So what's the fix? The fix here is I would begin taping my sales calls, and I would listen very, very carefully to them. Listen to the questions, and if you're like most people, including myself, when you take a look at one of your sales calls, you think, oh my gosh, I missed that, or I could have gone deeper there. So start taping your calls, reviewing them, and seeing where the bottleneck might be in your sales calls. The thing about sales is that you never 100% nail it, but you can get better and better and better by getting conscious of what it is that you're doing. I've been teaching sales for 35 years in corporate, and now I'm an adjunct professor at Columbia Business School teaching entrepreneurial selling. And I can tell you, I am always learning as well. But when you have the right mindset about it, and you're really thinking of being in service of the people that you're talking to, not only will you enjoy it, but you'll get better at it. So let's bring this home. If you've hit a sales plateau, it is likely not because you're not working hard enough, and more likely to be one of the bottlenecks or a combination of the bottlenecks that we talked about today. Perhaps your niche is too broad, or your offer is not bold or transformative enough, or your messaging is not compelling enough, or your pricing is undermining your authority, or finally, you don't have the right mindset or the skill set to really help you close more sales. The good news is this is all fixable. If you'd like help in diagnosing your bottleneck, schedule a call with me and we'll go through your business and we'll take a good look at where you are and see if we can come up with a plan that is authentic and genuine to you. And perhaps in 3 months or so, you'll be looking back at this saying, oh my gosh, I'm glad I did that. So schedule a call.